Lights flash, yellow tape, I hear the sirens. Another name lost in the war of silence. Cold case kid gone, tears in the siren song. Nobody talks, now the pain just lingers on. I speak the truth like a 12-gauge blast. Mic dropping facts, yeah, I'm built to last. This ain't fame, this is blood in the streets. Motivation born where the justice bleeds. We're living in shadows, chasing a sound of voices that vanish deep underground. But I won't stay silent, I won't look away. I fight for the names they buried that day. No more silence, no more lies. I see the truth burning in their eyes. Mic in my hand like a loaded flame. I'm calling out every killer by name. No more silence, never again. Desire fuels every breath I take. I got justice burning with every break. Serial minds with a twisted code. I decode the pattern overload. Got kids missing, mothers crying, but we scroll past while the truth is dying. I bring the noise, I bring the storm. Let every secret be reborn. You can't erase the pain we hold. You can't unsee the stories told. They're not forgotten, they're in my veins. This voice won't fade, it breaks the chain. No more silence, no more shame. The fire inside me won't be tamed. Tear down the walls, expose the names. Justice rides on the sound of rage. No more silence, we are the flame. You can hide, but the truth survives. This mic speaks for the ones who can't. You can't. No more silence, no more lies. I see the truth burning in their eyes. Mic in my hand like a loaded flame. I'm calling out every killer by name. No more silence, never again. No more silence, never again. No more silence, no more shame. The fire inside me won't be tamed. Tear down the walls, expose the names. Justice rides on the sound of rage. No more silence, we are the flame. 12 what? Let 'em hear it. The name 12, the first name gauge of the blast. Hear me out, it's all about the game. The YouTube streets ain't got no shame. From cat kickers to those with the sauce, we see them daily laughing and joking about those that take a stand about their minds. It's just a daily dose of insanity. Take a stand by. There are beggars, grifters, baddies too. Just a lot of confusion, whatever it do. From missing kids to people being butchered in the night. Many lost in these chats without a fight. 12 gauge, listen up fast. The beat of the heart will melt your cast. It's the crown of the champ, the image of the might. Get your ass ready, because here comes the fight. There are beggars, grifters, baddies too. Just a lot of confusion, whatever it do. From missing kids to people being butchered in the night. Many lost in these chats without a fight. Listen to the words that run from a mic. There will be knowledge and facts to light. You don't get it, you think I'm too brash. Listen to the ones that you just throw away your cash. 12, 12, 12. Can you remember the name? It's about a sinister shadow in the dark to ruin your sleep with the mares of the night that give you chills. Come to the channel, you can get your fears brought to live without the censors. Making a fight, your brain beat down from the grifters on these streets. Give the channel a try and dance to the beat of a different drum. Woo! There are beggars, grifters, success is what I'm about. It's the honesty and humility without the clout. I chose to be who I am a long time ago. Addiction had me drowning. Hell on with the show. 12, 12, 12. Click, click, boom. Another round for the unconvinced. Here it comes now. Boom, boom, boom. Yeah. They're all beggars, grifters, Betty's too. Just a lot of confusion, whatever it do. From missing kids to people being butchered in the night. Many lost in these chats without a fight. Yeah, 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 hit 'em. 12, click, click, boom. 12, 12, 12. Listen to the sound as your head explodes to the pound of the beat that won't leave your head. Never underestimate the drill or the pound of the mic. Last change, here comes the fight. Leave the liars alone, the fake criminals, the studio thugs. Don't they all just get on for a hug? They're all beggars, grifters, Betty's too. Just a lot of confusion, whatever it do. From missing kids to people being butchered in the night. Many lost in these chats without a fight. Without a fight, lost in the chats, here comes the might. Yeah, they're all beggars, grifters, Betty's too. Just a lot of confusion, whatever it do. From missing kids to people being butchered in the night. Many lost in these chats without a fight. Cat ladies kicking up cats while others screaming in their chats. Lady luck, give up the crown. Time to make all you grifters drown.
All right, all right, all right. How's everybody doing tonight on this Thursday evening? My name is 12 Gauge, as you already know. You've already heard. This is my channel, 12 Gauge Investigative. I hope everybody's buckled in and ready for a wild one because we're going to finish up these documents and then we're going to probably open it up for some questions or some clarification that you may or may not have. But before we go on, we have a celebrity amongst us. I was in the chat earlier. Her name is According to Lean, I think the channel is. But I was in there and this individual hopped in the chat and the lady's like, "Oh, I know you. You might not know me, but I know you." And I was thinking, "Oh, damn, here we go." But anyway, she's like, "I really want you to come up on panel. I want to hear your understanding on the Idaho 4. And I was thinking, oh, damn, is this a setup? But this individual went up, and we have a celebrity amongst us. His name is Mr. Jeff H. So, Jeff, I hope that panel went well. I had to leave, and I couldn't watch most of it, and I've been pretty busy. I'm probably gonna go watch it on replay. But if you guys have never checked out her channel, her name is According to Lene, Lene. It was a pretty cool chat. You know, she seemed pretty level headed. She seemed very very knowledgeable of the case. She wasn't all about conspiracies or speculation or anything like that. She was reading the documents kind of like I'm reading them. Well, you're a mod. Why don't you do your job, Jeff? No, come down to earth, big man. Yeah, go ahead and link her up, Jeff, please. Hey, let me go ahead and say hello to some of the people in the chat. Jeff H, of course. Serious. How you doing? Delby Rush in the house. Rondi Potter. Warning label Nina. And Leslie and Billy is up in the house. And I'm sure other people are going to file in or they're going to watch from afar. Either way, it doesn't matter. We welcome you all. We left off yesterday. Hold on a second. Is the sound okay? I mean, I don't know if you guys can hear the sound all right. that's why we're doing this. Um, Let me know if the sound is all right, if it's too loud, if I need to turn it down, if it's echoing or anything like that. Texas in the house. So, all right, good deal, good deal. So let's get on with the show. I left off right here on number or letter B. It said that the court declines to impose organizational requirements on the state. So let's do a little recap on last night's reading. I don't know if y'all went and read the document since last night, but basically what we got all out of this last night was the state was upset because, or not the state, the defense was upset because the state handed over discovery that was not categorized, was not labeled, was not, you know, put in places that they could easily find Brady evidence that they could use against the state. And the state rebutted with they downloaded the information from the investigators and they passed it along to the defense the way they received it. So, also, the defendant wanted to use this violation to get sanctions on the state in order to get the death penalty removed and the expert witnesses to not be able to testify. So, they were talking about Brady Giglio in this document as well. And like I said last night, Brady Giglio is not usually used before the trial. It is always before the sentencing phase that the Brady Giglio evidence and information is usually looked into before the penalty phase. So I don't know what other people are saying, and it really doesn't matter at this point because it doesn't. Because I'm doing the document reading, so hopefully I'm doing it correctly. If I'm not, then I'll do better. Don't come at me. Southwest Firefly, how's it going? How's it going? So we'll start with defendant additionally asked the court to require the state to identify Brady material or the hot documents within the discovery. The court finds neither is warranted. While the general rule is that the government needs not specifically identify Brady material within a larger mass of disclosed evidence, courts will sometimes order the government to organize voluminous discovery to comply with the spirit of its statutory and constitutional obligations. But the court's not doing that this time. And the case is United States versus Salyer, 2010. U.S. versus W.R. Grace, 2008. Such organization measures include requiring that the government specifically designate any known Brady material within the discovery, which, if there is any Brady material in the video that they're supposedly having Brady material withheld from, the state has already said that there's no Brady violations in those videos and cameras. The camera. There's nothing in that is a Brady. Um, you know, there's nothing in that Brady material that is going to show anything. The investigators also said that. Um, Whether to order such identification is highly dependent on the facts and circumstances of the case. Sefarina. Courts consider not only the volume of discovery and how it was produced, but the relative position of the defendant requesting identification, such as a defendant's access to counsel, 2, whether the defendant is incarcerated, 3, a defendant's access to resources, 4, a defendant's ability to participate in the preparation of his own defense, and 5, whether the interests of multiple defendants are aligned. United States versus Lacey. In Safarina, for example, the government produced approximately 1 million records and 3.5 million pages of documents in discovery. With this discovery, in this case, the government provided production logs, bait stamping, and the metadata in an electronic and searchable format. And that's another thing. The defense is claiming that it's an unfair playing field due to the fact that they allege the state has a program that they're able to categorize all this information, put it in a nice little spreadsheet, and be able to, identify everything nice and neat. While the defense doesn't have that program, and he feels that that is an unfair advantage. So the state has contended that they don't have that program and that they're using spreadsheets in order to document all this evidence that they've gotten in the investigative process. Where it becomes tricky is that Ann Taylor doesn't want other people to be going through the evidence that had been turned over in discovery. And it's in this document, it's not something that I'm saying. She doesn't want other people to be going through this stuff or the evidence, and she wants to be the one that is doing it by herself. So how can you say that you're not sufficiently getting the time or the resources or the manpower to go through this stuff to find specific Brady material if you yourself don't allow your own team to help you? That's kind of counterproductive to what you're doing for your defendant. But that's just me. Hello, Joanna. Nice to see you tonight. Thank you for being here. Let me ask the first question of the night. What do you think about what I just said as far as Ann Taylor wanting to be the one that is going through all the evidence to try to find the Brady material and putting it all into subsequent categories leading up to the trial? And she's not wanting anybody else to do that, supposedly due to the documents that they state. What do you think about that? And she's asking for more time, more resources, more help, but yet they're filing these motions to have the death penalty and the expert witnesses removed due to, a violation of his due process. What do y'all think about that? Let's not call names, okay, Jeff? But I'll let you do it this time, just this one time. There's many pro burgers that would be happy to help Ann in all these documents. Okay. I'm sure they would. I absolutely love the way Judge Hippler gives it right back to Ann when she is whining about how much work she has on her plate. And that's also mentioned in this document about her taking on an extra death penalty case. If she didn't have the time to do this one, why would she take on an extra one? Um, Glad to see you, Nina. Maybe if Ann shared it all and other team members, they'd come to the realization that Ann Shirley must conclude that he's guilty. I don't think she ever will, but it could be a possibility. Suck it up and delegate. Yeah. Why do you think she wants to be the one totally in charge and doesn't want to get any assistance? Why do you think that she doesn't want assistance, but she's asking for more time, more resources, and feels already that her defendant is on an unlevel playing field due to all this information that was given to them without being categorized? Why do you think that is? From what I understand, there's turmoil in Never Never Land. To get more time, possibly. Or to, you're right on that, or to be probably starting the appellate, because if he is found guilty, then they can appeal that they weren't given the proper time or they weren't given the evidence in the way where they could have the Brady material exposed and all this other stuff, that it was hidden, and it was like looking for a needle in a haystack, as the documents have discussed, and it hasn't been that way at all, according to this document. Um, let's see where I was. You are doing great tonight. Thank you for being here with your energy. You're really giving some great energy tonight. Brady obligation required to identify any known Brady material to the extent that the government knows of any such material in the production. In doing so, the court emphasized that the defendant was an individual defendant who neither had the benefit of parallel civil litigation nor access to voluntary corporate assistance to sift through the massive amounts of documents within the government's voluminous production. That the defendant counsel was handling the case pro bono with time constraints and limited financial resources, and that the government assisted by at least 2 federal prosecutors and several federal agents from at least 2 law enforcement agencies had the luxury of reviewing this material on a rolling basis over the course of a 3-year investigation. And that is that case right there that they're talking about. So, um, the footnote states, nonetheless, this issue is largely moot given the representation by the state regarding its knowledge of Brady materials within the discovery and the exchange of the state's expert disclosures and exhibit lists that, from the state's perspective, call out the hot documents. Likewise, in Saylor, the court directed the government to identify previously disclosed Brady Giglio material to the defendant, where the government collected documentary information during a 5-year investigation, and the government's massive production consisted of electronic information with multiple gigabytes and millions of pages. And that is the case Saylor 2010. The court reached that conclusion based on the circumstances of that case, which included there was a singular individual defendant who was detained in jail pending trial and who was represented by a relatively small defense team. And 2, there was no parallel civil litigation, and the defendant did not have access to voluntary corporate assistance in attempting to find the document needed in the defense. By contrast, in United States versus Meek, the court declined to compel the government to identify Brady material in its discovery, noting that the government produced the discovery in a user-friendly, searchable, and indexed format. And that's what they're saying, is they didn't give us this material like this. And she said this a lot of times that, y'all didn't give me this information the way that you're able to do it. So we're at an unfair advantage, which is not true. They're just not going at it as hard as they ought to, instead of putting all this energy into these motions to get rid of this and get rid of that and get rid of this and toss this and suppress this. You should be going through your material that you've been given to see if there's any Brady violations. Because if you don't get to that Brady violation by the time the trial is over and he's found innocent or guilty by a jury of his peers during the sentencing phase, if you still don't have any violation, you can't come after the fact and say, oh, we found Brady violations, if he takes it to appeal, if he is indeed guilty. In contrast, in the United States versus Meek, the court declined to compel the government to identify Brady material in its discovery, noting that The government produced the discovery in a user-friendly, searchable, and index format. There was no indication that the government deliberately concealed or buried any exculpatory evidence in the information it turned over to the defense. The defendants were sophisticated, formerly high-level executives represented by experienced and talented counsel from notable law firms, and the defendants had access to the discovery for over a year and had it in the same format it did the government. The court further pointed out that ordering the government to identify or label already produced material as covered by Brady and by omission identify non-Brady material only invites future dispute to whether the government did an adequate job of identifying such material or characterized the material consistent with the defendant's view of it. Emphasis in original. So it seems like all along the defense has wanted the state to do a lot of this stuff for them. It doesn't seem like, I mean, obviously it's true because if you're saying, I need more time, well, that's saying that you don't have enough time to do what you need to do in order to be an effective counsel for your client. Then what are you doing with your time? You know what I'm saying? Obviously, the prosecution doesn't have more than what, one, two, three, four attorneys, and you have one, two, three. You have three. You had four, but for whatever reason, you got rid of him, or he jumped off the case. Footnote number 15 says, see also United States versus Blankenship, 2015, requiring the government to specifically designate any known Brady materials with its 4 millions of pages of discovery that were disorganized and unsearchable, where the government had several years to review the material, yet the defendant had only 5 months. Excuse me, and where the defendant claimed the government was burying exculpatory evidence. And I think she's going along the line of this kind of defense. Well, thank you. Thank you so much, Leslie. June 23rd, I think. Next week will be week number 5, and there's 11 weeks, so I think it's the 23rd. So that's what they're saying in this motion. The state gave us so much so fast that we're not able to look through it all to see if there's exculpatory evidence for our client. Therefore, this is a Brady violation. But the state is saying, well, we gave it to you the way we got it. And it's really not our job to put it into context, nice and pretty, and hand it over to you. Which, I mean, that makes a lot of sense. We don't work for you. You have a job to do. Do it. Get more help. Hire more people. Come off some of that money, you know? Number 16 says, see also skilling. Holding government was not required to identify Brady material where there was no indication that the government was holding exculpatory evidence and where its discovery, consisting of several 100 million pages of documents, was electronic and searchable, accompanied by indices and identified hot documents, but the prosecution viewed as particularly relevant. Well, the state has stated multiple times that there is no exculpatory evidence in what they're asking for or not being able to find at this time, you know? So, while defendant is currently incarcerated, he had a robust defense team and has not faced time constraints given his speedy trial waiver. Right. He waived the right to a speedy trial. So he's had the opportunity for his team to get this information, put it in order. And you're going to say, well, they haven't given it over to them. until the very end. Nobody knows that. Just because the the discovery motion to compel were put out and the last that I saw was 21, that doesn't mean that they didn't give them anything until the very end. That's just how your mindset works. You don't know what those motions to compel were asking for because at that point, everything is gagged and sealed, right? So we don't know what they were asking for. Every one of those motions to compel a discovery, we're asking for a particular thing. So to say, here's the deadline, and then the state just gave us everything all in one swoosh, we don't really know that that was true. We assume that because that's how it played out in court. But I'm going to go with the fact that the state probably gave them as they received the information as they stated in court, because otherwise they would be committing perjury in front of the judge. Because you can't sit there and lie in front of the judge without being held accountable with contempt and perjury, you know? Um, with this case well over 2 years old, further unlike in Sepharina and Sailor, Salyer, defendant has had nearly as much time as the state to review discovery. And that's true. They got it, they gave it to you. There was probably a timestamp. There was probably everything to show the transfer happened at this date, this much, and everything was given to you. Defendant was arrested on December 30th, 2022, approximately 6 weeks after the homicides. Defense counsel filed a notice of appearance on January 12th, 2023, and the state first began providing discovery on January 18th, 2023. So there it tells you. They started on January 18th, 2023, giving discovery over. How much discovery? We don't know. But obviously, it wasn't enough, or it wasn't what the state was looking for, or the defense was looking for. So they continued to file the motion to compel. Thus, this is not a situation where the state has had the benefit of a year-long investigation compared to the defendant, who has mere months to review the investigative material. Further, the court shared the significant concern voiced in Meek that requiring the state to identify Brady material in already produced discovery or to organize it in a way different than how the state received it would simply invite future litigation as to whether the state did a sufficient job. Not infrequently, what constitutes Brady material is fairly debatable. Where the circumstances do not, as here, cry out for a departure from the general rule, the court will not invite such future disputes. And that's pretty smart. That is the judge's job to make sure that everything that is being put out there is in a streamlined fashion, that there are no sneaky tactics, nothing that, is going to keep this trial from happening that either side is doing or not doing. And you don't think he's reviewed everything that's been disclosed to both sides at the time frame, dates, times, all this stuff? If you don't think that, then you're delirious. In addition, there is no need to require the state to disclose a list of hot documents, which is a tool imposed by some courts for particularly voluminous discovery to aid the defendant in identifying material that deserves closer attention. Chen Bryan, Big Data and Brady Disclosures, 2024, the state had effectively already done so. The defendant was indicted by a grand jury. This process required the state to present evidence supporting the elements of the charges and identify any substantial evidence which directly negates the guilty of the subject of the investigation. So, if you didn't hear that, for those in the back, the state already at the grand jury had to prove substantial evidence would directly negate the guilty of the subject of the investigation if there was any. If there was any exculpatory evidence whatsoever, they would have heard it at the grand jury. And as far as as far as I know, they didn't find any or they didn't mention any. The answer to your question, Rondi, you said Can Hitler force prosecution to do what AT wants? No. No. He's not. It isn't, well, he's the babysitter of the. He can sanction if there are rules being broken and there is evidence to support it. But just to say Hitler can make them do this or make them do that, no. There has to be a process. You have to prove that what you're saying has happened. And in any of these documents, it hasn't been proven. He had dispelled everything that the defense is throwing out there that the state is not doing. Otherwise, if he had found evidence of um, prejudicial misconduct or that they had, you know, exculpatory evidence and they didn't show it and all this other stuff, there are sanctions for that. So to say that Hitler is just sitting on information that could exclude Mr. Koberger and set him free, it's just falsehood. It's a want, not a need. You know what I mean? It's like it's what people want. It doesn't work that way. Defendant is privy to all the evidence produced by the state at the grand jury proceedings. In this matter, further, the state recently disclosed its exhibit and witness list identifying precisely what the state intends to use to support its case. So the state has already, everything the state does, they must turn over this to the defense. There can never be anything secretly hidden from either side. So what the state knows, the defense knows. What the defense knows, supposedly the state knows. It's supposed to be open and transparent. Additionally, the state has taken reasonable steps to aid defendant in navigating the discovery, including by providing a detailed index of all the discovery produced, identifying the location, a description of the evidence, and a date discovered. Just like I said, providing the FBI materials with a searchable index, working with counsel to resolve access problems in documents, and representing that surveillance videos other than those highlighted by the state do not contain any relevant footage that the devices, phones, and other digital data of the victims and others do not show any connection between the defendant and the victims. Here's the footnote. It says for capital cases in Idaho, a defendant who has court appointed counsel must have a lead and a second chair attorney. Here, defendant has always employed at least three attorneys, has employed investigators and mitigation specialists, and has retained dozens of experts. So to say he has had misrepresentation of counsel is not true because he's had just as much as the other side. So collectively, this provides defendant reasonable means by meaningfully reviewing the discovery he requested. Consequently, the court declined to impose additional organizational requirement. The order, based on the foregoing defendant's motion to strike the death penalty and adopt other necessary procedure due to the state disclosure violation, is denied. It is so ordered the 29th day of April, 2025. So that tells you right there. I mean, if you've been following these documents, you've seen that this is the pattern that's been going on with the defense. This is the pattern that the defense has been doing. And I don't blame them. I mean, she's trying to save his life any way she can through any ways, any means necessary. She's probably doing the better job than many people would do for him. Let's see what y'all are saying. I've seen that some others are saying Hitler is done quitting or thrown out. Is that true? No. Yeah, the state is well aware of the Brady material mandate, so she is just cranking out motions about this or try to delay. You're right on point. I went on his premiere and was asking him about it. Good job, Judge Hippler. Seems like she's trying to get the death penalty out a little early. Am I wrong? You would think so. She's been doing that almost from the beginning of these motions. She's been, but I get the process. I would think everyone would be thrilled with Judge Hippler because of the vast knowledge of case law and he is fair in all aspects. Of course. I mean, the other dude wasn't even really there during the hearings. It didn't seem like. It seemed like he was there, but he wasn't. He seemed less interested than what this judge is getting. This judge, they say, well, he's not interested. He sit there like he's bored. Well, think about this. If you were having, let's say you went to school the same way that another person went to school. Oh, now we're on 4chan. We're going back to 4chan. Not me, but other people. I just saw something and I was like, oh, really? We're going back to 4chan again? How many times are we going to revisit the old courtroom and 4chan and all that other stuff? I guess when you got nothing new to say or your understanding, then you're going to play the game as much as you can, just like the defense attorney is. It's interesting, though. I do want to play a video that I was watching earlier, and I know this video has been played already, so hopefully she doesn't get upset that I'm playing this. But I thought it was interesting the way she was discussing this with the individual. But there you have that document, and you can kind of relate the other documents with what that document, the kind of the format that that document went by. Because pretty much that's how it is. This is what the defendant wants, this is what the state argues against, and this is what the judge, based on case law, got to the conclusion of. That's exactly how it all goes. There is no judge has emotions into it. He has his anger into it, has this into it. Doesn't. People only see anger because they're angry. I don't see that judge as angry. I see him as somebody that is trying to run that courtroom like a tight ship. I mean, like he told both attorneys, I don't want any theatrics. I don't want any underhandedness. I don't want any of that stuff. And yet it's still been tried and he stops it before it gets too long out there. You know what I mean? I think they were comfortable in their little community and the change of venue backfired on their face. I think so too. He's heard it all before. Be kind of sick. We'd be kind of sick of it too. Well, I don't think he's sick of it. I just believe that he's trying to do the best job he can because that's his job, right? To be fair. But you can only be so fair if people are not being fair in their presentation of whatever they're trying to present. If that makes sense to you guys. Like, if I tell you, be fair and don't cheat, and you say, yes, 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 and then whenever you get the chance to have all this audience where you think, well, you're not going to call me on it because I have this audience. You don't want to embarrass yourself or embarrass me. It seems like he's basically saying, well, I told you this is what I expected, and you still went and tried to get over on me. I'm not going to allow it, which is commendable in his point. Let's listen to this. This is Ashley Banfield, and she was talking with Steve.
These documents drop and just layers of information that we've been waiting for suddenly are in our fingertips. Do you and Christy and the family get advance knowledge? Do you get a heads up it's coming? Does someone walk through it with you and help it to land in a more sensitive way?
There is times where they will reach out, especially when they know it's something that's a little hits home. If it's going to say stuff about Kaylee, I would expect them to come out. But there's been some back and forth a little bit to tell them, prepare us more, because our phones are going to ring. We're going to see people. I work at a hospital, so there's probably 4,000 or 5,000 people there. So, it's good to let us know what's going on, so we don't accidentally say something that doesn't make any sense because we don't know what's coming out. And so,
I mean, that's a point right there that, a lot of times they probably hear it way after everybody else has heard it, and people are repeating information to them, just doing the telephone thing, and they're getting misinformation, they're getting all this stuff that they hear instead of just hearing it from the legal aspect.
somebody's just seen it and they take advantage of you not knowing what's going on, or they assume and you just say something wrong because you not fully understand what's going on. So it's back and forth, but they've gotten better, and I really like the team. They're good human beings. Everybody that's been working there is really impressive. And
that's the prosecution team?
Yeah, the prosecution team and the investigators, everybody that's involved in this case has been really, really good to us. And,
do you have like a liaison, someone in particular who's your point man?
There's a victim advocate, but I'll be honest, they don't work when you once you leave the county that you're in. That victim's advocate doesn't know the court like they normally would. So a lot of times we hear before they hear. There's times where we've actually contacted them about they're going on, and they're like, no, that's not the case. And we're like, fortunately it is. It was an ex parte hearing. And we're like, are you guys going to the ex parte? What's going on about it? And they weren't even, because they're not supposed to be there. So they were never informed. And we're looking at the doc 3 or 4 times a day, at least.
They also don't know Steve Gonzalez.
And a lot of times in these court processes, people assume that because it is document related, that they're just going to speed this information through. They're going to speed this these documents and all these motions and everything. I'm shocked that it's going as fast as it does, because this is not the only case that court is trying, I'm sure. I mean, I don't know if Bill has any other cases that he's trying at the moment. I don't know if Ashley Jennings or the other person that came on, I don't know what his name is, but, if they have any other tied up or their own practice, they got stuff to do also. And this is just a portion of their job. Well, the defense, it should be their only focus. Because if you don't have the time, as you say, and you have all this evidence that you need to go through, what the fuck is this? No, I'm not concerned. Thank you for that, though. You might go check out like another channel, Vibrations. Might go check out some other channels. That's not my level of concern. Those are other channel topics. So you might go check out another channel with that question. There's plenty on right now. There's Jewels of All Trades, or whatever her channel's called now. There's all kinds of other channels. What's that other one? Once Upon a Crime Time. And there's some other channels. Nika Nero Nuggets, or whatever the hell. Those are some topics for them. Why don't you go ask them those questions? I'm sure you get a better answer than what I could give you, because I really don't care about that kind of stuff. There's your answer as far as on this channel. So thank you for asking. But like I was saying about this, there are deadlines and everything else that has to be met whenever these things are being filed, whenever they're being read, whenever the judge has to look at them, go over the information. I mean, it's going pretty quickly, you know, going pretty quickly. I don't know what's sad about it. I don't contend to those narratives. I really don't. But it's cool that you do.
Deserve to know, the people who shouldn't be in the dark, and for this long of a process. So, I mean, I'm sending you a big virtual hug here just to let you know that we are aware that you are going through more than most people can understand. And that brings me to what we're learning today. I mean, more details I did not expect to hear, and they're kind of confusing, I'll be honest with you. The story that the surviving roommates tell in these documents is that they actually saw Xana. They saw her lying down in her room, so the door had to have been open. All this time, we've all been imagining that Xana and Ethan were behind a locked door, and that's why no one could get to them, and thought there must be something wrong. We'll call 911. Was this a surprise to you to hear this detail?
Let me ask the chat before he answers, because I mean, we've heard about this for a while now. What do y'all think about the fact that Dylan supposedly saw Xana as she was heading downstairs to Bethany's room? What do y'all think, chat? What do you think? Do you think that was malice of forethought on her part, or do you think that she should have stopped and checked on her friend? Do you think that, because we're thinking here, okay? We're thinking here. So, do you believe that she should have stopped, checked on her friend, if she was scared of what just conspired? Do you think that she should have stopped? Any thoughts? Thank you, Sirius. I don't think Dylan thought anything about it at the time. Melissa said, I'm here at 12 watching. Hey, everyone, chat, say hello while working. Okay. Part of me wonders how often Dylan has seen Xana passed out drunk on the floor. Not malice, hindsight maybe, but she was scared. Okay, then I wonder how come they're not given the opportunity or the grace. She's not given the opportunity to have made a decision in a moment of haste, whether it was right, whether it was wrong. How come she's not given that presumption of innocence instead of automatically assuming that she's guilty or knows something about this crime because of her actions? And I don't want you to attack any other channel or even name any other channels. I named some, but I don't want some channels named in the chat or creators or anything like that. I just want to ask you, how come you believe that she's not given the same presumption of innocence that she should be? Instead, she's guilty, Bethany's guilty. They all know something about the crime. They were either involved or they assisted or they helped clean up all this stuff. Do you think it's just a little out there to be presuming that somebody's guilty because of their actions, but yet you want another person who has more direct circumstantial evidence linking him to the crimes, but this person has none, and you're basing all your assumptions on this case as they had something to do with it? I'm not worried about it. Dylan isn't sitting in silence. We'll probably hear explanation on the witness stand from Dylan herself. I think she should have stopped. Okay. Well, go ahead and tell me why. Give me some examples of what makes you think she should have stopped. I'm not going to argue. I'm just, I just want to know what you're thinking. Scared or not, she should have at least called for help. Okay, that's fair enough. I'm open to what y'all are saying because I really want to know, because I don't know if in that position many people would have made the right decision, whether they should have, would have, or could have. I don't know if they're capable at this state of the generation, I could be wrong because she's young and a girl and not talking. I don't think that those girls would have spent the night in that house if they'd known about the murders. That's a thought. I don't think they did. And that's the point, Leslie, is if they would have known about the murders, I believe that once she got downstairs, they both would have booked it out of there. But since they didn't, automatically they became suspects in other people's minds and in their eyes, which is fair game. I'm not one to debate anybody's thoughts, but does it make it right that they didn't act the way that you believe that they should have acted? Even if she was passed out from alcohol, so many college students die from alcohol intoxication. That's a good point. In the moment, I don't think I would have. If there's any chance that Xana was covered with a blanket to look like Ethan, maybe let her sleep on the floor. Maybe Dylan felt Xana wasn't alone. 12 gauge, that's her friend. That's a that about a girl just laying there. She knew something was wrong just to look. But she just saw a masked man and heard some ruckus. I mean, I thought they left. If I knew a friend had been drinking a lot, my main concern would be that they were on their stomach so they wouldn't choke or vomit. Well, they said that her head was facing the wall, her feet were facing the door, you know. But we're assuming that they were buddies, that they were friends, that they were close. I mean, I'm not making excuses for Dylan whatsoever. I'm just throwing stuff out there because, in reality, there are a lot of different variables to every situation. There's not just one cut and dry. I don't think the decision was made in malice to not check on Xana. Most young people are self absorbed. It just goes with the age range. Her goal was to get to Bethany's room, and that was it. The fact that she thought she was passed out and not just asleep negate that to me. Okay. It was nothing for us to have to step over someone sleeping on the floor. It could be that they were used to seeing that. I don't believe they were there. Well, people have their own beliefs, and it's based on how the information is presented by different individuals. If it's kind of like magazines or newspapers or even online blogs, whoever's the first on the story gets to pitch you the best explanation of what they believe. So if you believe theirs first, everything you hear after that, if it's not aligned with what you hear, then you're never going to question the narrative. That first thing that you heard is going to be the narrative that you take with you throughout the whole ordeal. I'm not saying that what she did was right or wrong. She didn't get arrested for it. So if it would have been something that was malice, or if she had some knowledge of Xana being dead, I think they would have at least brought her in for an interrogation. I'm just asking you guys what you really think. I mean, to be blunt, I just think the survivors were dumb as hell. See, I'd rather live with that answer than anything else. Southwest Firefly, I really would. I really would. That makes more sense than anything else that's been said. You know, it really does. We want to incorporate it a lot of times in our own visualization at our age. Now, if a 53-year-old man like myself were to walk by somebody, you would hope that I'd stop and have enough of human dignity to go and see if they were okay. But these days, a lot of people don't have that human dignity anymore, regardless of their age. You know, I mean, and we may we may also really get to see her perspective once she gets on the stand if she's called to testify, if that makes sense. No, your rendition is perfectly fine. That's pretty much what probably a lot of people are thinking. Southwest Firefly, they gotta live with that for the rest of their life. That's hard. Yeah, I mean it is hard. I just told you what I thought. I just told you what I thought. Were you listening to me at all? I did. Throughout reading yours, I was telling you what I thought. You know, at 19, I would have been so self absorbed, I would have been like, I would have looked in there, called their name, walked out. But that wouldn't have been after seeing a man in a mask with whatever was in his hand. You know, that was the focus for her, not then on the floor. That was the secondary focus. The primary focus was, let me get to Bethany's room. My phone's about to die. I ain't got time to be checking on people. I ain't got time to make sure everybody's okay. This isn't my job. My job to get to safety, which is what they're taught as young kids these days. Stay safe, stay alive. Don't be a hero. Don't try to um, save other people. Stay alive. So whenever you're taught that, it's instinctive. And once again, I'm not talking for Dylan or Bethany or anybody, but I'm just saying it's just a little harsh to say that they have something to do with it just because their behaviors seemed a little off. I like some of your thoughts, I really do, you know, because we really don't know. But our perception at our age tells us they're either dumb as hell, didn't even think about nothing, and only ran toward the safety and didn't even think whether she was alive, dead, passed out, vomited all over herself, none of that. But in that other case that I presented a couple of weeks ago, the survivor of an attack just like this said she waited until morning to go check on her friend. She didn't get up right away and go check on her friend. And in the morning, she was barely alive. She thought that she had vomited on herself or vomited by her, and it wasn't vomit, it was blood. And she didn't even notice all the blood until the EMS arrived. And then all of a sudden, she snaps back into reality and sees all the blood and starts freaking out because that attacker went right by her room. Do you get what I'm saying? So a lot of times we really don't know, but it's interesting to talk about in a way where we can be adults about it. Because none of us are 19. I'd love to have a 19-year-old. I'd love to have a 19-year-old, maybe 7 or 8 or 9, 10 of them in this chat right now that were females, and ask them what they would have done. That would be the great controlled group to actually hear what somebody 19, 20 years old would have done. Because I can tell you what I have young ones that I can ask, and they're going to tell me, you know, my mom always said, don't be a hero. Get to safety. They've told me, I've asked them, what happens if there's an active shooter? You run. You run as fast as you can, wherever you can get safe. That's in their head. It isn't about, oh, if you see some of your schoolmates falling down or whatever, you stop to rescue them. No, every man for himself. You know what I mean? And a lot of these things I'm just bringing up because they are viable to these situations. And I'm becoming long-winded here. Let me read what you are saying. Seems like from a portion of the text message with Bethany maybe saying Dana was wearing all black to ask Dylan, are you sure you saw a man in black? Yeah. I mean, wounds. I'll have to go up and see what you said. That's right. I remember her. Is there a desire from BK supporters to talk about this Dylan aspect of it all to keep talks from talking about all the other damning factors that point to BK? I really don't think it's about pointing one way or the other, but it could be. Once again, I'm not about guilt or innocence tonight or any other night. I'm about finding the intellectual conversation in all of this. My personal beliefs are no matter what those girls didn't do, nobody would have been saved. Sounds the wounds were fatal regardless of calling the police, and that's what the coroner stated. I've asked my daughter's friends, and they said they would not know what to do. I talked with them and told them that they need to call me no matter what. Call no matter what. So, do you want them to call you, or do you want them to call 911? Let me get on with this video. Please answer.
Yeah. I actually talked to Hunter a little bit back very beginning, and I remember him saying something about the doors, and I, not knowing the details, thought he was speaking of the outside door. So now, now looking back, I said, oh, the door being open, he was referring to the bedroom door, not that outside door, because there was reports of the outside door being open. And I was like, okay, so that's true. That's how you can get things wrong. Somebody tells you the door's open and you assume it's the front door, and it was actually the bedroom door. So, yeah, we try to stay away from anything, but that was new information. That was an eye opener. But
That's a great statement, Rondi. Bethany didn't go check either. How come Bethany doesn't get as much shade as Dylan does? Because Dylan saw the actual perpetrator? And Bethany really, people look at it, well, she didn't know much. She didn't say much. She didn't any of this. Are they going to wait to attack her at the trial after she testifies? I mean, that's a great point right there. She didn't go check either. Steve makes a good point. Misunderstanding information is different than misinformation. True. And I was saying that last night as well. You know?
yeah, I cannot. You know what? I just imagine her booking her tail off, going down those steps as fast as she possibly could, seeing something at the side of her eyes, and just running all the way down the steps. So I'm sure she's seen something, but it wasn't like a slow motion, like looking and staring and poking through. At
Yeah.
least my girls wouldn't be too scared to do anything like
Well, and the way she describes it, as as little information as we have, is that she thought this was Xana on the floor, just drunk. I mean, look, these are college kids. This is what they do. They're the worst thing that maybe their minds might go to is that somebody may have had too much to drink, or God forbid, might have OD'd. But no one's mind would have ever gone to what actually happened. And even then, the level of fear was really high. That Dylan is running downstairs to Bethany's room, scared in the middle of the night. She's seen a guy in the house, but the level of fear, which is high, is nowhere near what was really happening. That's the thing that, like, 2020 hindsight is all great.
that.
But in that
Exactly.
moment, this kid is just she's still a kid, right? I still think of these
Mhm.
guys as kids.
Oh, I know when I was 19, I made some stupid, crazy decisions that make no reflection on the person I am today, because I just didn't have life experience. So I give the same grace to anybody who's probably under the age of 25, to be honest, especially for guys. I know girls start making more logical decisions earlier in life than at least I did. But I know guys can, get a guy in a motorcycle or a pickup truck out in the dirt roads, and you'll question their logic. So
Yeah. So
gotta give service.
the other surprising detail that just gave me a lot of pause was the fact that the girls were all upstairs in Kaylee's room, talking. The roommates, Bethany and Dylan and Maddie and Kaylee, at 2 o'clock in the morning. They'd all been out. They'd all come back, except Xana hadn't come back yet with Ethan. And they were all talking, as college kids do. Night is still young at 2 a.m. And they were thinking of going back out again, going back out to maybe go to the food truck and get.
So let me pause it for a minute because I have to. What do you think about that? Whenever you read or heard about that all of them were in the room, in Kaylee's room at 2 a.m., and that Dylan contacted an Uber driver at 2:10. What did y'all think about that information once you heard it? Were you shocked that they were all in the room at 2 a.m. in the morning? Would you have ever thought that? Or did you believe that everybody was in their respective rooms at that point? And would you have ever thought that they had contemplated getting more food? God, that dog, bro. I think Bethany could tell Dylan was scared, but she still didn't go check. That carbonara must be some good smelling stuff to make other roommates want to go get some right after. Yeah. Sounds like normal stuff for roommates to do. Surprise to me about food. It was interesting for me to actually hear that they were thinking about going back out to get food. I mean, I can see that. I mean, your roommates show up with some carbonara. It smells good. It looks good. You're all in the room. Once again, I'm not a female. I've never been a female. I don't have estrogen to that point where I can assimilate what a female thinks, does, or acts. So to sit there and give assumption of what I would have done being a male in the perspective of a female sounds kind of to me. You know what I mean? Like, how would you know? But anyways, um, for them to sit there and be like, "Hey, that really looked good. Y'all want to go back? You want to go back to the grub truck and get some? Let's go back to the grub truck and get some." Oh, we really don't want to have to call that guy again. And I'm speculating right now. I'm trying not to, but I mean, it's only like common knowledge to think this, because from there to 2:10, Dylan was calling the Uber driver. So they almost made a decision to go back to the grub truck. And then ultimately they all chose not to. Dana and Ethan weren't home yet. So, they didn't have to worry about them, you know? Yeah, maybe a little bit of munchies was a factor at that moment, of course. I'm sure they were like, our driver Eric is surely still driving. He just dropped us off. Could have been. I was surprised they were all in her room. Well, I mean, I don't know. You tell me. You're a female. Those females in the room, you're once 19. If you ever experienced this type of lifestyle, would it be common for girls to gather in one room and sit there and talk about the night or talk about food or talk about whatever? I mean, Kaylee had just came back into town and they really hadn't had a chance to catch up, right? They were at a football game. They went out in their separate ways. All of a sudden, you're coming back together at the end of the night, and you're in one room. So it seemed like Kaylee's room was the meeting place for everybody. I want to get a time machine and talk Kaylee into getting a Rottweiler instead of that type of dog, a something poodle. because we hadn't heard that before. Is what I'm at. You're right.
Another round of late night food. And I just was sort of gobsmacked by this moment of how possibly things could have been different. Have you gone over this sort of theory in your mind?
You know what? I have, but it's hard I can't go there really. I don't try to think of all the what ifs. What I try to think is what's the positive aspect of this? And to me, it makes that timeline that much tighter. It proves that DM was in the house, sent a text to the same driver that Kaylee used, which is a friend of the house that they've all used. It backs up all these narratives and things that I know to be factual. And it helps put another piece in the puzzle. And that's one thing I've always said is if you're innocent, you want the evidence to come out because the evidence is going to prove it's not going to fit you. You're going to be able to be like, well, they got all this evidence. I'm innocent, so it's not going to fit me. So let's just rip through this evidence and figure out where I can say that's not me. But in this case, that's not what they're trying to do. They're trying to get everything tossed out because every piece of information, whether it's DM contacting the driver and saying, hey, are you still around? Which backs up a story that, let's be honest, the 19-year-old didn't know they're going to go through her phone. They're going to track it. There was this CAS system. They're going to go all through this house, know when they went upstairs, went downstairs. They didn't know any of this. And they're not talking about cleaning up a murder scene. They're not talking about what do we got to do. They're literally just girls being girls, sitting on a bed, talking, laughing, talking about, let's go get some food. Let's not go to bed. It's 2 a.m. Let's go have some more fun. And I'm sure there were
He does make some good points, but I think people forget that before a lot of these individuals that have their lives taken, they're just going about living their daily life. They're just going about living normal as they did 5 minutes ago, as they did yesterday, as they did the day before. It's not one of those spidey sense moments where you think something bad's about to happen to you and the people that live with you. And this interview happened, I think, 2 days ago.
very close to doing just that. And it's unfortunately they didn't. But on the one side it makes that house a little bit clearer and people know a little bit more what was going on.
Yeah, I mean, and honestly, the what ifs are hard on this scenario as well because it's 2 a.m. And if they'd gone back out to the food truck, they might have been back by 3 or 3:30. And this monster, his timeline was 4 a.m. So it may not have made a difference, but it is just sort of an alarming thought that there was an idea to maybe leave the house. And who knows what might have happened. There's also details that you've learned from, your conversations about the situation that presented itself on the 3rd floor when this killer perpetrated his crimes. You've learned that Maddie was killed first and then your daughter. What was the scenario that was laid out for you?
We wanted to know where she was at and how this happened as much as they would be able to share with us. And they said she was in bed and we're like, her bed, and they're like, no. So we're like, Maddie, because that's not unusual. They crash out in our house all the time together. 4 or 5 of the girls sleep in the same bed. I don't know how they do it. But so we got those details and then we just, kept asking and, it's the last moments of your daughter's life. And that some of that information can be helpful to the case. So, you want to make sure that you know enough that you could be helpful if there's a certain thing in the room that was missing. things like that. Do we have pictures that they don't have access to? That Maddie Mae's room lays out like layouts of the room. If it changed, things like that. So yeah, we learned that they went for Maddie first, and then Kaylee. Kaylee woke up. Kaylee showed signs of fighting, and or a fight. I don't know really what somebody waking up with somebody stabbing you, how much fighting you can really do. But then this monster struck her multiple times, and those were injuries that I was told that only she had in that room. I don't know about the other people downstairs, but that was one of those details where we kept to ourselves because people would come forward and say, "Oh, I know exactly what happened that night." And we be like, "So describe what happened to Kaylee," and they couldn't do it. So that was something that helped us, and I really.
So that's pretty intense right there. I mean, but once again, the whole focus needs to be on what he's talking about right now. Talking about the four that lost their lives. Brian's going to get his day in court. If he's not guilty, if he's innocent, so be it. Whatever the outcome. But to sit there and attack and say everything that's been said about this man and his family and everything else that's been said about the other families, that's been said about the surviving roommate, that's been said about everybody in that town, it's just ludicrous. People act as if they know these people just because we all tune in and we watch them on an interview, then we know them. No, we don't know them. To hear that your daughter has wounds to her that don't match the others, and I believe that's what this is where he said that. The wound don't match. Well, it sounds like the wound don't match because his daughter had her face bashed in. Her nose broken, supposedly, is what he's going to say. How joyous would you be hearing about your child having this done to them, regardless of the circumstances, regardless of the time of night, regardless of anything else? All this BS that is fabricated all over these YouTube streets, these people pulling up documents and highlighting and checking and see, this is where the evidence is. I need to get with the prosecutor, or I need to get with the defense. This, you know, you're pretty much spitting in this man's face and every family member that's ever lost a loved one. And I'm not trying to be dramatic, I'm trying to be real. If you entertain any kind of conspiracy or some kind of off the wall theory that happened other than what we've been told in the documents, I don't know what to tell you. You're either mentally ill or you need to get off the dope. You need to put the bottle down because it's not cute. It really isn't. That's the only excuse I can give anybody to be able to talk the way they talk on these chats, in these lives, whatever. They need to get off whatever it is that they're on, because these are real people with real losses. And hopefully it never happened to you, because the first time that you get on these YouTube streets crying about losing a loved one, we've already had one do it. And he lied about it for GoFundMe money. It was he lied about it. So he vanished. His channel's no more. But the people he associated with, they say birds of a feather flock together. So if he lied like that, think about the other two people who he was on nightly on their panel with. Are they liars too? Are they manipulators? Are they grifters, as we say? So To lie about losing somebody for some monetary gain, as this individual did, they've never said, we need money, send us money. We lost our daughter. Well, the whole world knows they've lost their daughter, and they're just trying to find justice. If this guy is the killer or whether he isn't, that isn't the basis. The basis has been lost. The murders were horrendous. If you don't know what having your face smashed in feels like, come on over, I'll show you. Then, as you're sitting there gasping for air and bleeding all over the place, I'll ask you, do you believe that this was heinous? I mean, I'm just saying. Because people act like there's no capability of somebody hitting somebody so hard that it breaks their nose, smashes their face, all this other stuff. They act like it's just for dramatic effects. And it's really not. It's the real deal. But of course, it's people that talk about this are people that get on here and placate the chats. Just like my song said at the very beginning. But let me give the mic to Steve.
Really appreciate, Mabbit for sharing that information. And I know a lot of people screamed and yelled and, put a bit of pressure on her, but I give her a hug and tell her thank you 100 times over for putting me in the last, moments. It's not fair for parents to have to wait 2 to 3 years to understand what happened to their kids. Talk about cruel and unusual punishment. I mean, nothing's crueler than to be told that you don't get to know what happened to your child, and all these other people in this courtroom get to know, and they're complete strangers. They don't even know your kid, and they get to know all about this. It's I'm not a fan of that, but
I'm always hoping that when I learn things, I'm learning it second after you, obviously. I've always felt that it's just so unfair if family members hear from the press details that no one had shared with them prior. And it does happen. I mean, it does. It's not a perfect system. But this was a call you had with the coroner, right?
Yes, it was. Yeah, multiple calls. We had more than one.
Did she share any other details?
Yeah, she did share some details, but those are, they have to come out to me and we have to talk about it. And then, so I don't want to say something that was just words on a phone, I'd have to know more details before I could share all the stuff. But I guess the best I could do at the time was say that Kaylee's and Maddie's didn't match their damage. I wasn't trying to say one had more or one was other. I just was trying to say that they don't match, and I could share that information, but I still wanted to respect the courtroom and respect the process of this. But I'm not going to reward 2.5 years of dragging this on. Eventually you got to just let the truth come out. And, that's part of the reason why I start letting some things come out that I can, because Hippler's definitely opened up the sealed docs at a much better pace that makes you feel like that we'll at least get to this courtroom and have some idea what's going on. We don't have to sit there and get hit with unknowns over and over until you can't even process it anymore. I mean, the whole court process has nothing to do with the parents, has nothing to do with the victims. It's all about the person who did this and their rights. The fastest way
that's Judge Hippler you're talking about, who's taken over the case from Judge John.
Yeah, Judge Hitler.
Yeah.
He took it over, and he took it over with vengeance, and he had a mission to get this thing back on track, because realistically, we went 2 years without a schedule. I mean, they would literally be in that courtroom and saying, what do we got to do to get to a schedule? And then they'd say, well, you're going to have to make decisions on the schedule. And then we would leave and they'd say, well, we're going to have to make a schedule. And so we're not doing that anymore. We got somebody here who can make decisions right there in the courtroom. And I appreciate that, and it's something that we had to have. We had to have somebody come in there and start getting through this and setting some timeline. So that's a positive. But
Shit. Let me ask y'all before we continue on. What did you think whenever you first heard them talk about that the wound did not match? When you first heard that at the very beginning and all through this whole 2 years, when it was stated the wound don't match, what were your thoughts? Tell me, share with me. What were your thoughts about that statement? The wounds, the wound don't match. What did you think that statement meant? Did you honestly think it meant the knife wound? Did you think it meant other wound? Did you think, when he said the wound don't match early on, what did you think about that statement? What was your thought pattern? Did you have any idea what he was talking about? Okay, I like that. I thought that maybe the weapons either chipped or broke. I agree, Jeremiah. Hitler has made a difference in this world. Many took that statement and went to golf club, but I think one knife can be damaged in many different ways. Okay. Honestly, I didn't know. No, I didn't have no idea. 12. I was wondering, I mean, to be honest, because my mind was all over the place when I heard that. I thought maybe there were two different knives, and I've always thought that. But now that he says the wound don't match, and I was stuck on that for a long time. And now that he said it, it finally hit me in the cranium. Now I see why he said the wound don't match because there's different wounds to his daughter. I assumed that he was talking about the knife being dulled because of different type of wound. Yeah, yeah, very true. I mean, I thought there was two knives. I don't know why I thought that, but I was kind of going all over the place with all these different different theories and stuff, myself. So yeah, I guess I thought that myself. Um, but I was curious to know what y'all were thinking about that, because that's been a statement that's been around for a while. The wound didn't match. Now I see why they don't match because one was a facial situation with the stabbings and another person got stabbed. Obviously, if there was any kind of strangulation or anything going on with these individuals, we're going to find that out as well. For some reason, reading Dr. Bricato's The New Evil book, I have a feeling somewhere that maybe strangulation was a part of something. Whether it was on these two females or maybe the two at the bottom or the two victims on the second floor. But for some reason, I believe that he put his hands on one of them. I just don't know which one, other than Kaylee getting hit in the face. I mean, but I believe that he tried or was successful in strangling one of them. I don't know why I think that or believe that. I can't give you any concrete information, but it's just a feeling. You ever had those feelings where you just can't define it? You just know it? And I could be wrong. I never I never considered him using his fist. Well, I always thought since he was a boxer that would have been the way to knock them out in the beginning. You know what I'm saying? Jeff H., I thought of you saying that over a year ago when he said he punched Kaylee. I wonder if he hit her with the K bar like Jeff thought. I can't see him breaking Kaylee's nose with his hand. The damage to his hand would be very risky. I don't know, Jeff. You hit somebody squarely in the nose as hard as you can, you're going to break it because that cartilage is not very strong. It really isn't. People break their nose falling on the floor. It's not really that strong. The cartilage isn't that hard to break your nose. I mean, not trying to disagree with you or, embarrass you or anything, I'm just saying that the cartilage in your nose isn't very strong and it's easy to break. I mean, if you can see, my nose isn't perfectly straight either. It's kind of goes like this. And if anybody's ever been in some fist fights or, anything like that, you understand how easy it is to break that bad boy. I think a crowbar. Tell us what makes you think that, Southwest Firefighter. That's an interesting thought right there. But if your choice in the moment is a hammer or a fist, well, I know your theory, and I could see why your hammer theory makes more sense than a fist. But I mean, still, if you're having a knife and you're hitting somebody with the end of it, you have the blade exposed over here. Aren't you potentially have the capacity to like stab yourself with it? I mean, I don't know how that would work. I mean, maybe Tom can give us some suggestions. If you're watching this, Tom, hop on in here and give us some insight, or if you watch this on replay, leave some comment because that's an interesting thought, though. He said, I learned and leaned tonight to first view the way the K bar is held than I imagined. But it's also been in other videos that I've watched, is most people that stab, they stab with a forward motion like that. The ice pick stabbing is not as common as people think. But I could be wrong. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? I don't have a K bar, so I can't show you, but I know what you're thinking. You're thinking like this, hitting them like that. But there's still the blade right here. I mean, that's a risky ass way to hit somebody because you have to be very conscientious not to cut your own self with the damn knife. You know what I'm saying? But I could be wrong. I could be wrong. Yeah, I mean, it's just a risky way. I mean, if you believe it, you like it, I love it. I mean, that's just a risky way in my eyes. Yeah, Jeff got a K bar.
I think you mentioned some of the details that the coroner. I had a conversation with the coroner early in the case, and she shared with us that Xana had some very severe defensive wounds. Like Xana had fought very, very aggressively with this killer. Um, and I think that the coroner may have shared something with you about some of the injuries that Kaylee had, right?
Yeah, she did. And she was struck in the face. Her nose was broken. There was multiple hits from what I've been told, and I'm trying to be careful with my words. But the blows that he sustained delivered to her would have killed her.
Really?
Yeah.
If the knife wounds hadn't, the blows would have?
Yeah.
Was there any other detail that the coroner shared?
Yeah, there's definitely other details, but to
That dog's killing me with this mute. Like I have to mute it, otherwise it's just gonna be dog barking. Um, so he said that punch to the face or whatever it was broke her nose, and those wounds would have possibly killed her. 911 couldn't have saved her. So to say that Dylan should have called 911, that's the responsible thing to do. To check on Xana would be the responsible thing to do. But we do have an understanding that life is happening very quickly in this house. So the two other people bleeding out in that room without anybody having the wiser understanding that there has been a murder that occurred in their house, quadruple murder at that. There's no way that the 911 or the EMS could have saved these individuals. So if we could just, give these people some grace, because they're not on trial. They're not the ones having to defend their innocence or presumption of innocence. Regardless of what your thoughts are on that, I mean, they're not. If they were, then your thoughts and your beliefs probably would align with stuff. But you say I talked to this person a lot before, and he would always say, I rely on facts. I rely on facts. Well, there's no facts to align with your belief system on Dylan. And I don't know why people have such a distinct need to tear her down the way she'd been torn down. You know, I don't, I don't
I'm gonna let
understand it.
them have the opportunity to release that information because I don't want to. I don't want to overstep them, but it sounds like it's about to come out. So um, I'm looking forward to that.
Anything that you can share that wouldn't compromise the case?
That's the thing. That's why I always ask for more communication because it's things like this where we're like, you can tell us a safe thing to bring up, and you can tell us when this stuff's going to come out, or you could just let us figure it out on our own. Because I told them, you met a father who's not going to. I'm not going to remain silent. Not over this. My daughter would expect me to stand up for her, and that's what I'm going to do. And I'll go to jail if that's what it comes down to. If you're going to arrest me because you need me to be silent and think I'm going to protect the guy who killed my kid, I'm never going to protect him. Once I knew that he was guilty, and that wasn't right off the bat. It took me a considerable amount of information and facts before I made a decision that, all right, they got the right guy. And then at that point, it was just, what can I do to help? How can we get this over, get this process started, let people know that the evidence and the facts are there, and then we can just get this done. Because
There was a
like,
time I did have a conversation with you, a couple of conversations, I'd say like a year ago, where I feel like you really were concerned that
yeah,
he was going to get off. Like you were starting to really question the evidence, the case against him, the case that Ann Taylor was building. Is that accurate to say that you started to really fear?
yeah, there was fear. There was such a lack of leadership in the courtroom. There was things that were just going.
Good grief. Thank you so much, Joanna, for that. You didn't have to do that. It's appreciated. This dog killing me with this mute. Can y'all hear me now? Hopefully he'll go and lay down or something. Um, but Steve was saying that he's never going to protect the guy that killed his daughter. How many of you would have? How many of you would? How many of you would protect somebody that killed your family member? How many of you would even say, I presume he's innocent until he goes to trial? In a vicious, heinous way that you hear that your loved one has been killed. How many of you would defend the killer? Yeah, I was standing silent. Um, that is so sweet of you, Joanna. Thank you so much. I believe he knows a lot more, Jeff. I really do. And I don't believe any of you, if you're really being honest, somebody hurt your kid in any way, shape, or form, you're going to stand for any of that. Whether you take retaliation or you do it the way the court are set up to do it, you're going to fight for your child. regardless, your grandchild, your niece, your nephew. Hell, even if you have a kid that you've just adopted as your own, that is just somebody that's really close to you, the herd to hold the killer up on a pedestal and to not even want to defend the deceased, that says a lot. That says a lot.
Went all over the place, and nothing was really getting done. So yeah, I got nervous there. I had insight on things that are still not public. I knew a lot of different things that I just didn't understand why you would hide such strong evidence. And so, you start wondering, is something else going on? Do they just want this case to go away to where, let's just get it out of the community, protect the businesses, and once we're out of the community, we'll make a plea bargain and keep everything sealed. Maybe once the plea bargain's done, some of it comes out, but by then nobody even cares. And that's just a father just trying to struggle with how this process works. And maybe I was wrong. Maybe I was nervous, or just wasting my time worrying about things that weren't going to happen. But I didn't know. I just knew that a case shouldn't be going in the direction that it was going. And I was like, we got to do something. And,
I mean, these girls were not very big. I know y'all forget about that because of Dylan being a little taller than them, but in retrospect, all the girls that were murdered were within 5'3" and 5'5", I would say. They were very tiny. So tiny that the fact that I believe that 7-inch K-bar knife, and I'm not trying to be morbid here, but it could have went through some of them because they were very thin. They were thin. And, people say, well, Brian is frail and he lacked coordination, his autism this, autism that. They were small. They were small in stature compared to him, regardless of how tall he is, how built he is in a different build. They were smaller than him. There's an easy way to overtake a smaller person. And you're going to win. You're going to win every time. Yeah, and he's still a man. And the fact that they say that Ethan could have taken him out, blah, 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 all this and that, I believe that Ethan was caught off guard. He probably was caught off guard and didn't even have a fighting chance. Just like these other three didn't. Even if Xana saw him coming towards her, seeing someone with a knife and trying to protect herself with defensive wounds, doesn't mean that you had the ability to beat this person with a weapon. Texas has worked in a prison. I've worked at a prison, and I don't know how many of you have been ER nurses or trauma nurses, but once you see stab wounds, you understand how quickly and how fast somebody can be taken out. It doesn't take a long time when it comes to stabbing. I've seen people stabbed up to almost 100 times on the rec yard, and it happened so fast that it was hard to understand what you were watching. It really was, because there was so much going on. First, you had to understand what was happening, and then you were kind of doubting yourself whether what you were seeing was really what you were seeing. And I know Texas can attest to what I'm saying, because it's just a very rapid, enraged situation.
I feel like it got back, but it took leaving that community, which was something we fought. We wanted to keep it there. So, but in the end, is what was needed.
Let's talk about this detail that you've learned about Brian Koberger. We were all shocked to see the photograph, the selfie that was snapped just hours after the murders in front of his shower. But you've learned what he did after that. What was it?
Yeah, I learned about a tally of some girls that were having conflicts and feeling like he was doing things that were making them very nervous, following them outside of the classroom, standing in front of the door, forcing them to go around him, basically forcing interactions. And they were just trying to do everything to avoid him. So how I understand it, they communicated this to management structure there. They said document things. They started documenting that this tally that they put together. And from that,
what is that called? You're saying a tally? What was that?
I thought it was called like the Brian tally is what it was described to me as.
I'm not sure. Is this the place he works?
Yes. This is the classroom in which he's, a teacher aide in,
That's the name of the classroom. I hadn't heard that name before, but that's what this is. So this is basically the classroom where he is working. He's making everybody feel uncomfortable.
Yeah. And the tally is when they went to, I don't know if it was HR, but they went to people in the school and said, hey, I noticed something, this girl knows something, but it's still kind of hearsay. So then they're saying, document it, the time, the place, the things, a witness, those type of things. So they did do that. And that was going on. And that's how we found out that he missed school Monday after taking that photo, where he doesn't look sick to me. But what does that give him? That gives him a whole day to like go over figuring out how they're responding to what he's done. So he could sit there, gloat, and Google search, do the same things we were doing to try to figure out what was going on.
Or continue, if he's the guilty party, continue cleaning up, continue making sure that there's not a trace left.
Well, I hope and I suspect that.
Had y'all ever heard that he had missed Monday? See, because I had heard other account that he was there in class on Monday, but I'm not going to mention who told me that or where I heard it, but it could have been false information. But the dad saying that he missed Monday morning. Had y'all ever heard that? I didn't have an understanding that he actually missed on Monday morning. So that's interesting. Brian Talley, and found an article about it. I never heard about that before. Yeah, that individual's pretty twisted. What do y'all think about that? Him missing on Monday morning. That is telling that he missed Monday at work, and that's the only day, right? Yep. That we know of. That's what Steve's saying. I heard it until I read the article. Seems like I heard something about it a while back. Yes, I heard that. I heard he was there too. Yeah, I heard that very early on that he was there. He went to get his haircut. He went to the doctor's appointment. But then, he's saying that he missed that day. So I don't know what's true. I heard that he missed Monday before and heard about Brian Talley. Didn't know if it was true or not. Yeah. So are we in agreement that he missed on that Monday? And if he did, I mean, all these things are just, those are little clues that investigators look at. Like, okay, did they miss work? Did they miss employment or school? Did they miss any of this stuff? So details like this, missing work Monday, are the details that are maybe forgotten, and all the details you got to contort and doing a crime like this. Of course, it's almost like we're giving an investigating evidence, and we're having to sift through it. Why can't you, Ann? And most of us are only doing it a couple of hours a day. We're not really doing it every day, all day. It's not our job. So we're getting information. We're sifting through all the BS and getting to the teeth of it. Do better, Ann. Do better.
The searches that he did before the 911 call will do him in. The activities that he did before anyone knew what happened, those will be the final nail in this case.
Well, for a criminology PhD, doesn't seem very smart. I mean, who buys a knife and a sheath and a sharpener online and has it delivered to your parents' house? And who goes after a killing where the sheath is left behind and the murder weapons disposed of to find a replacement knife and sheath online? Who does that?
I think even if you're somewhat intelligent, your human instinct, you start racking your brain and you started worrying, like, what if if the cops knock on my door and say, well, we couldn't help but notice you bought one of these. Where's yours at? You wanted to have one. You want to be like, here it is right here. It's in my fishing tackle box, some story he was going to make up. But
that makes sense. Just buying it yourself online. I mean, online purchases is 101 in criminology. Who is this guy? How could he possibly be in a PhD program?
Yeah. And, but I've heard that he tried to hide that with a gift card that was given to him. He thought maybe he could avoid the transaction by using a gift card and then deleting all of his history and deleting all of the proof that it was associated with this count. But
Where did you hear that?
There's some documents out there that talk about him deleting his Amazon history.
But the gift card part, where'd that come from?
It's been 2.5 years, to be honest. At the top of my head, I don't know where I heard the gift card. Yeah, I don't know.
Not sure if it's authorities or if it's just sort of in the reporting sort of ether.
Not even sure. I would definitely not say the authorities because I don't want to tie their hands to say that they gave me something that, isn't an official doc. But yeah, I definitely heard about the gift card. But like I said, I've heard of a lot of things because I've had a lot of ears and a lot of eyes, and I did a lot of calls and I answered a lot of calls, investigated, talked to WSU employees, talked to UI employees, talked to basically anybody who was willing to help a dad out. And there was a lot of people in the community that were willing to help me.
What else do you know that I don't know? That at this point you're sort of at the leading edge of it, and where the fountain of information is starting to flow. The gag order we are soon to see pretty much gone. The documents are dropping. But what else is it that you know that we don't know?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure what everyone knows. I just know that there is other aspects of the case that they want to drop that hammer in the courtroom, and that's where we're at. I can't share too much, but I think it's coming out. I think Hitler's strategy is by the day we go into the courtroom, some percentage, and probably in his head, is going to be out. And I've kind of heard that came from the media pressure. The media themselves, who had a challenge to the gag order, basically said, this is not something that is in law. Like, gag orders are for national security. Gag orders are not usually for an everyday crime in a state. I mean,
they're getting more popular, Steve. And let me tell you, I have been on a tear about the increased use and the broad range of the gags over these cases. And there's always the same excuse. We've got to protect the rights of the defendant. I get that. But if O.J. Simpson could get a verdict of not guilty with the amount of coverage on that case, arguably there's never been another case that's been as highly covered as O.J. And Michael Jackson, same thing. There was a case, and Beretta. I mean,
Hell, Casey Anthony, bro. Casey Anthony. Let me get y'all's opinion on this. Do y'all believe Casey Anthony did it? I've never asked that question to the chat. I'm asking now. Do you believe Casey Anthony did it? Leslie, the only thing that I really go by are these documents and some of these interviews on the News Nation and all this other stuff. As far as all that other stuff that other creators say or do, I don't listen to any of that. I actually scuff at all that nonsense, because they don't know. I don't know anything about her. Look her up. Look her up and watch the documentary. Oh, hell yes, she did it. Yes. Are you kidding, 12 gauge? Yes. I had to ask. I watched the documentary because I had never watched that case. And somebody said, hey, you need to watch the Casey Anthony case. And I watched it and I was like, are you shitting me? She got off with all the evidence and everything that pointed her direction. She was found in lies and all this other stuff. I believe Casey did it. Do y'all believe Jody was guilty? And here's the big one. Do you believe Chris Watts did it? And then I'm going to play the rest of this.
Case after case after case, you can say highly publicized cases have still returned not guilty verdicts. So it's hard to convince me that a lot of publication can damage the defendant. Sometimes it can work in their favor.
Yeah, for sure. I believe if you're innocent, it 100% helps you. And even if there's not a case that is very strong, the facts, as stuff comes out, you should be able to combat it. I don't know what a gag order really does, but to protect somebody who's guilty. I mean, if the facts of the case, as they come out, if those make you look guilty, you want silence. You want to hide it. You want to keep it. You want to keep it out. But most people would just be like, throw them out, and I'll prove them. I'll knock them. I'll knock them out of the park is inaccurate.
The fear is the fear is the poisoning of the jury pool with facts that may not qualify to be entered into evidence in the trial, and yet there they are. They know it.
It's getting scary because you are typing some of the stuff that I'm typing, and you are beating me to it. I'm like, whoa, we are starting to get on that wavelength. The chat and myself are just like, okay, I see you. I see you, Texas. Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you, Southwest Firefly. He almost broke down and pooped himself. He did.
Anyway, because of the media. But I keep going back to OJ. Plenty of things were suppressed in the OJ case, and it was all over the press. Karen Reed is another case. There's a case that is at retrial now, and it is a constant. I mean, there's docuseries, there's dramatic series, there's all sorts of coverage on Karen Reed, and she had a hung jury. So we'll see what happens this time. But I'm not one of those people who believes that a gag order serves American jurisprudence. We pride ourselves on having such a pristine, open, honest, and transparent system of justice in this country that everybody gets a fair defense. And if you're guilty, away you go. But you get your defense, you get your day in court, and that's something we should all be very proud of. But is there a detail? Is there a fact pattern, an area in this case that you got blind spots and you are waiting? It is the specific area that you want resolved the most, details that you're waiting for the most?
You know, I've always questioned why there wasn't more some warrants on certain things. Things that have came out. I follow the warrants because the warrants kind of I feel like are like the cheat code to figuring out where the truth is. When you hear these suspects, but there's no warrant related to them, then you can kind of toss those out. So I've made inquiries on certain things like why have we not heard a warrant about this or that? You know, maybe accounts for my child, things that I know personally about. So those are just trying to make sure that the case is perfect and everything is right. It probably just me worrying for no reason, but those are the type of things that you know, I'll ask Shannon to reach out and say, hey, can we make sure that they know about all these accounts and clarify everything.
But there isn't something forensically like I personally keep thinking, how did the killer get out the sliding door of the kitchen, get to the car, get into the car, get to wherever the dumping ground was to get rid of the bloody clothing, the knife, and all the other implements of the crime, and get back to an apartment. And if it's Koberger's apartment, all without leaving a forensic trail that was, a beacon of blinking lights, because that didn't exist. And I keep wondering what did that killer do to hide those tracks so well?
It's what if I said the killer actually wrote what he would do? Because Brian wrote a paper saying how he would go into a crime scene and not leave any evidence in that crime scene. So I think you just need to read what he wrote. He wrote exactly what he did, and he probably did more. Who knows what he learned in that Reddit post where he interviewed criminals that got caught or got away with different crimes. And, I believe he incorporated those into his night of action. So I think he came to that slider, opened it up whatever way he did, left it open, left some things outside out at that slider, part of his kit, part of his plastic bag, whatever it was, went in, did his thing. Was covered in a Dickie outfit from neck to toe. Had this hood thing on that they also got that coming to his house. If you attack this guy, you wouldn't scratch him. You wouldn't be able to get your hands on him. The only place would be his eyes, and gloves on. I think people underestimate if you know what you're doing and you want to go in there and you got a mission and you've been planning it out, you can get into that house. I've seen the models. I've seen the 3D models where they're in and out, sometimes in like 5 minutes. So there's a couple of them depending on the path that they take. But yeah, I mean, when you really watch a timer and you see the amount of time this person's been in the house, he had more than enough time. And then he got right back out. I mean, his door to the slider is the same technique that he used the doors into the room. He just didn't want to touch anything. He went in there with the plan, studied. I mean, he spent years and years in these classes just reading and admiring these other killers. And he was basically planning out to do his version of what they did.
I mean, I could dig that. I really could because, I mean, look at the fascination we have with serial killers. Look at the fascination we have with killers in general. We tune in daily. I do lives about it. We talk about it. We think about somebody whose mind is not in that good place. And instead of looking at it as what we look at as probably fascination, wanting answers, for whatever reason, these individuals create an urge, a desire, a fantasy. Fantasy plus opportunity equal destruction. And you're okay, chick, for saying that. I mean, I'm not going to ask you for, receipts or any backup information like I usually ask people, but if you have it, I'd like to hear it. You know?
Did not and incorporate what they did and their mistakes and try to be that much better than them. So I think that's what you're going to see. You know, he went in there, had a plan, did what he did, and then he bailed. And he bailed, and he had a shovel in the back car. I would assume that the shovel had something to do with wherever he went. He buried that thing and got rid of that. You know, maybe he had plastic on the seats. Maybe his trunk was lined with something. Tosses it all in there, and he's gone. And the path that he took, there isn't even street lights. I mean, it's dark, dark roads and nothing but fields, open farm fields that you could drive on.
And water, lots of
Yeah,
lakes.
and lots of water too. So I don't think once he got to that door, he was gone. He was gone.
Do you think, again, if it's Brian Koberger, I have to say that because he's got his day in court, he's innocent until proven guilty. But if it's Brian Koberger, do you think he, or when do you think he chose his victims?
We wonder. Like I honestly, my personal thing is he probably did it in Pennsylvania when he gets the murder weapon. You know, when he sends that to his house, he's made a commitment internally that that's what he's going to do and that's where he's going. And I think that there's murders out here, you know, in this area of the Northwest that intrigued him, and some of them, the people were never caught. You know, there's like a Lewis and Clark killer, got away with 5, even killed somebody from U of I, and then was never.
But when do you think he chose this house and these kids?
With social media, he could have done it long before, but it really comes down to like how in tune he was with. I personally think he was listening to 911 calls. I think he had an ability to listen to those calls, and he was just being a fly in the wall for a few weeks and figuring out what was going on, where the parties at, where were the girls at, what were things going on, where were the cool, popular kids at. And then he just started doing his thing and started doing the surveillance. And he started driving around like at least 23 different times. He was driving around a dead end road.
And see, that's what Ashley Banfield had just said. How did he get away without leaving any forensic evidence? Well, he didn't get away without leaving evidence because every time that he drove around near that residence, there was a and if you don't know what that is, that's a camera going off, capturing image. So you're telling me of those 23 times that this individual supposedly drove to that house or around it, there is not one clear photo of him in that vehicle depicting that car not having a front license plate? Come on, you're not really that naive, are you? You're telling me that of all these times, early morning and late night hours, early morning would have been probably right before class. So you're telling me that none of these cameras, by any stretch of luck, captured that vehicle without the front license plate, without an image that was similar to the images that they got around the time of the crime? How you can match these things up? You're telling me that none of that was possible? Oh, Jesus Christ, Chick. Hi, Chick. God. Let me continue on.
You know, you can say he was shopping, but yeah, good luck trying to convince us.
He does have a registration for a 2015 Hyundai Elantra without a front license plate, does he not?
All that you were out shopping it.
Have you heard any information that he was driving around any other homes? The number of times that he was driving around 1122 King Road? Like, have police ever said, we've discovered other surveillance where he spent an inordinate amount of time around another house or another location?
No, they have said that he spent an enormous amount of time around that address. And I think maybe that's what they were trying to say when they said this was targeted. And I feel like those were weird words to use. It made it sound like the kids were involved in something that made them targeted and started a bunch of rumors. But I think it was targeted because they were doing that caste system, and that dump let them know exactly how many people were in that area that really weren't supposed to be there. They could see normal traffic, normal like roommates and people that were supposed to be in those apartments. And then they could start seeing, okay, this is somebody that's leaving, coming across the state line at a really unusual time. And they started, it's a process of elimination. Who's in this area during these late nights that might not belong here?
I mean, I've heard that they were pretty on to the Elantra almost the same day of the crime. I don't know where I heard that, but if that's true, that means that they put all this information together fairly freaking quickly. Look, there's a car that's coming into the neighborhood. It's circling around once, circling around twice, circling around 3 times, circling around 4. Oh, and they're leaving in a high rate of speed. There's another car coming in. Oh, that's a DoorDash delivery guy. Here's another car hours before. Oh, that's the ride share. How hard is it to do the process of elimination like he's saying? I mean, he's being logical here. It's what time did he leave his house? 2:47, right? So at 2:47 in the morning, there comes a white car, and you can almost gauge it all the way into Moscow with the camera pings. Not the pings, but the photos. And you're able to pick it up with all these cameras, all these photos, whatever you want to call it. And there's no other vehicles in that vicinity. He's the only one at the stoplight. He's the only one turning left. He's the only one at the stop sign. He's the only one turning left. There's no other cars coming this way or the other way. How much process of elimination do you really need? I mean, I'd understand if there was like 50 white cars going in both directions. Then you could say, well, pretty much it probably wasn't him. But I don't see it the way I'm describing it. I don't see it happening that way. I don't see that they weren't able to crack down and get that vehicle at least as a suspect. Vehicle number 1, suspect. Doesn't say perpetrator, suspect.
And I think that's what they're going to show. And I think they're going to show an extensive, like sometimes minute by minute timeline where they know exactly where he was at, and they correlate that with cell phone activity with the girls, what they were doing, where they were at. People, that caste system for all those girls has all been there. The only records that were missing were for the person who turned their phone off, which again, who turns their phone off at 3 a.m. in a college town
to go stargazing?
To go start. And like we said, where's your stargazing app? If you're out there, you got this app that identifies these stars that you're staring at. Don't play us like fools. Don't just expect us to think you're just walking around clicking at the sky.
Well, that's when the reasonable nature of a juror comes in, right? Like, what's reasonable to you? Is that reasonable? Does that really sound like your gut feels good about that? And jurors are usually pretty good at that stuff. Let me go back to something you mentioned about, I think you said someone reached out to you who had taken one of Brian Koberger's Reddit questionnaires. Is that true?
Yeah.
Talk to me about that.
We actually got a letter on that one, and then in the letter was a number to call. This individual said that they had been called. They got the Reddit. Somebody called to survey them on crimes, and he was like, I felt like I was getting set up by the cops. So I was just like, I answered it kind of like over the top. He's like, I kind of embellished some stuff, kind of pulling the cop's leg. hung up. This guy calls me back a couple days later, and we start talking again. And he goes, and I start feeling like this guy's like enjoying how I was describing how I was getting away with, like how I selected my victims. And he said, so I told him, I knew these neighborhoods that had a lot of money, and somebody might drink a little too much wine. Somebody might make a call to 911 over a noise complaint. Somebody goes to jail. And when that male went to jail, I'd go to that house, surveil it. And if it looked like there was somebody in that house that was passed out, I would go rob that house. And that's how he picked his his victims, I would say. And he would rob them from jewelry, and I don't know what you do nowadays. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me, but maybe cash or something. But he would rob them. He said that Brian seemed to enjoy his story, called him a couple of times. He said he was so odd about it that when this case came forward, he was like, I know exactly what this is about. I'm going to reach out, and maybe he's pulling my leg. There's been plenty of people who have sent us stuff that weren't accurate, but it always stuck with me. It already stuck. There's certain things that stick with you. That one was one of them, and there's other stuff that other letters that we've given back to the prosecution and said, we don't even know what to do with this, and they've taken it. So
that was my next question. You shared that with prosecutors. They were interested to hear from these people.
Yeah, I don't know where it goes from there, but yeah, we've definitely given them the letters, and it's kind of like it just seems like it's a dead end. You never hear again. I was hoping I'd get my letter back, but no, we never got anything back, and I've never seen anything like that in the list of evidence. So it probably turned out to be nothing.
Interesting. How are you doing? I mean, we're 2.5 years. We're down the final stretch here, Steve. You're only a couple months away from jury selection.
It's a new feeling to know that you're coming to the end of something that, it's been 2 years of your life, over 2 years of your life. And, try to think like, what should we do as a family? Should we go on a vacation? Should we do something? Like, how do you have a next day of your life when your life's been invested and so dedicated to one thing? It's not just me. Kaylee's sisters are super dedicated, and everybody's worked on this case, and then like you can't let your mind go. So yeah, we're trying to figure out something, but we have to start planning now that it sounds like some subpoenas went out, and I would think if they're going through that, the trial is going to happen when it's supposed to be happening. And
well, there's only about probably 5 minutes left, or a couple 10 minutes, but they don't really talk about anything else. What I'd like to know at this point is I'd like to take some questions from you guys that maybe, if I can't answer them, maybe somebody from the chat can give their perspective, because we never do that. We just kind of just end it and it's over. I got a little bit of time, and then I'm going to call it a night. But if you have a question for either the chat or myself based on anything we talked about tonight, put stars in front of it, and let's get the questions coming. I mean, people are going to believe what they want to believe. I believe that was his Elantra. I believe that there was no front license plate. I don't believe that the light turned his car white and it was actually green, or it was blue, or anything like that. I mean, had Jeff and I never opened that can that night, people would have never ran with that one. Jeff and I kind of opened that one that night. Here's a question. Question: has it been established now that people were not over there at 8:30 or so? Great question. I don't think we've heard from anything that's been released whether there were actually anybody there at 8:30. There's nothing in any of the document that I've read that specify whether there was a neighbor walking by and the front door was open or any of that, or if anybody was gathered there as early as 8:30 in the morning. Because the earliest that I've heard um, that Dylan started texting was probably about 8:05, but it doesn't mention that there was anybody over there at that point. Otherwise, it probably would have it would have mentioned that. Don't even get your tags, so I have to read these one by one. I don't know about that. I think Jack was with another. I think this interview right here with Steve G is the answer to the question. Make it make sense. Question: did Brian Google the murder before it happened? I don't know if he Googled the murder, but it's been stated that, based on his final exam and the questionnaire that were done by the group, that those were kind of preambles to the murder based on the stuff that was discussed in those documents. Um, I'd heard that I don't know, where did you get that? I've never even heard of any of that, Tom, but that's a good question. Anybody here different? Whether Brian Googled the murder before they happened? Okay, here's an answer. I believe, I think Brian Googled the murder after they passed before the 911 call. And here's a question: why the 8 hours, no 911 call, just off the cuff? The only answer I have for you is the transcript of Bethany and Dylan, and none of it is mentioned in there. I was not at that house, and I can't presume that I know what either one of them was thinking or feeling, or how they were reacting to whatever they saw or didn't see, just based on the documents. Steve kind of insinuated it without actually saying it. Steve just talked about it. Okay. So that's where it happened. I guess I was zoning out. Sorry, guys. No, he didn't. That would have been on the case way before now, and they had it selfie and not his call. I call BS. I don't know what you're calling BS on, but okay. The texts tell the story, but I'm sure we've seen all the texts either. I call Ghostbusters. Well, Chick, I've seen you in another chat for hours, and based on what they've talked about, I can see why you believe what you believe, but they don't ever give any explanation. They just down the surviving roommates. They just call people liars and conspiracy theorists and that they got the facts and nobody else has the facts. Well, I mean, I know what chat you come from. So, it's cool that you're over here. I respect your questions. I'm just not going to be able to go there with you because my mind doesn't work like that creator's does. I go a little deeper than the surface, you know? I don't think they called because I don't think they thought the roommates were dead. They have BK data, so we'll find out. Okay, chick bait, we know all this, and they don't give info on the police side either, to be honest. Steve said the delay in 911 call could be a benefit because of the searches he was making before the 911 call. I do think that Dylan should have called 911 because she heard someone playing with the dog. I like being here, and the prosecution has nothing on this either. Both sides befuddle me. They shouldn't, because all these documents are cut and dry. They tell you everything you need to know. So if you really understand the case, it shouldn't be befuddling you. The documents are telling you exactly what is going to be talked about in the trial. What all is being motioned to dismiss this because this isn't done and that isn't done, sanction this, sanction that. It shouldn't befuddle you. That's why these documents are viable to the understanding of the judicial process. So if you can't understand the documents, none of the other stuff that you hear is viable information because it doesn't coincide with the documents and what's being released. But there is a lot we do know about this case. There's no presumptive arguments. You're spitting a lot of stuff out there that is just your opinion, and I respect that. But there's no logic in that opinion stating that the prosecution is just spitting out random thoughts because they believe that he did it. It's not really like that. If Dylan was in on it, or Bethany, all they would have told was we were drunk and didn't wake up until 11:30 or so. She understands it, just why she's befuddled. Well, the documents state a lot of the information that's being put out there that is to clear up a lot of the confusion. The evidence is as clear as day to me, in my opinion. There's a lot of circumstantial evidence. People have been found guilty for a lot less. Very true. That's a really good point, Tom. Well, like Texas said, circumstantial evidence will get you convicted as well. And there's been a lot of cases that circumstantial evidence has swayed the jury enough to convict. So that's not an argument in the court, It's really not. Okay. That makes sense. We need an eyewitness or photo of him here at the scene. That it's BK. He has no evidence next to the little to get him as less. So if he's an accomplice, he's going to be viable for 4 counts of murder. You do realize that, right? You don't get a less sentence just because, even if your theory is he's an accomplice, you're culpable as an accessory to 4 counts of murder. You do understand that, right? So even if there was somebody else that killed them, and he was the getaway driver, and he was dumb enough to get caught, guess who's going to potentially get killed over this? Accessory after the fact. He doesn't get a lesser sentence being an accessory, an accomplice. I mean, it doesn't happen like that. A lot of people don't know that, but that's the truth. I mean, if you and why do you think if we're rolling and we get pulled over and you throw some cocaine under my seat, the cops find it, nobody cops to it, well, we're all going to jail. It doesn't matter if it was my cousins in the back seat. Nobody wants to say it's theirs. We're all going to jail. Or somebody runs into a bank and robs it, and you don't know that they're robbing the bank. They run out, they get into your car, you get pulled over. Guess what? You're a bank robber now. So I don't have to look up anything, chickbait. I read and study this every day. I'm about to graduate with a criminal justice degree, a bachelor's at that. I don't have to read up cases in order to understand what I'm talking about. That's the difference. I understand the theory of the whole thing. I'm not basing my opinions or thoughts on other cases that I watch on YouTube. I'm not saying that's what you do, but what I'm telling you is that that is true. That is true. You don't believe it? That's fine. I'm not going to argue with you about it. I'm not. Brian wouldn't be stupid enough to involve others and worry for the rest of their life they have to come to Jesus meeting. No way am I glad, because I don't know shits, whatever that says. We must understand the wrongly clues, in my opinion. So how are you going to feel if this man is acquitted? Okay? And then years from now, we find out that he has become a serial killer. Are you still going to defend him? Are you still going to defend him? Thank you so much, Suzanne. Angie Dodge case is nothing like this case. The defense expert think it had to be two perp to do this. They got the wrong guy, then the cops are wrong. 23 plus years later, the mom of their victim vindicated him. I'm not saying that they don't get the wrong guy sometimes. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that when it comes to law, you don't get a lesser sentence because you were there driving the car, or you were with somebody and they went and did the crime, and then you happen to be with them, and you're not going to get charged with it either. That's not how it happens. These are interesting conversations. I'm glad you're in here, chick. Like I said, I know where all this is coming from, so give the sauce my love. Because, you know, you're one of them. I saw you put that the other day. That's your family now. I'm glad you found a home. Everybody needs one, right? I'm not into semantics here. It's getting late and I have a job to go to tomorrow. So I'm going to play some music and then we're out of here. Maestro, kick in the bass.
Midnight wheels in a midnight town, Hyundai rolling with the windows down. Got Brian riding shotgun seat, cold stare sharp where the justice meets. Tires hum like a death parade, black mask smiling through the mess we made. Old court docs in the glove box tight, cause legends are born in the dead of night. True crime headlines blowing up fast, a land truck drifting through the shadows of the past. Fame don't come to the clean or tame, it's blood and brass in the Hall of Fame. Blasting truth through the neon grime, clowning fools, but I still want justice this time. Saw the footage, saw the lies, red-nosed killer in a state disguise, laughing loud like a TV show, but Brian don't blink when it's time to go. No halo here, just flashing lights, courtroom cameras, TikTok nights. I ain't no saint, but I know what's fair, and that Elantra's ghost still haunts the air. True crime headlines blowing up fast, Elantra drifting through the shadows of the past. Fame don't come to the clean or tame, it's blood and brass in the Hall of Fame. Blasting truth through the neon rhyme, clowning fools, but I still want justice this time. Hands up, freeze frame, flash of fame. Now the whole damn world gonna know his name. They laugh like clowns, but I see the fear. One word from Brian and it all gets clear. True crime headline, scars that last, A lantern flying through a camera flash. Justice don't sleep in a world this fake, but Brian moves when the silence breaks. Blasting pain in the twisted rhyme. I'll die for truth, just give me time. Black mask hanging from the mirror's frame. Still chasing ghosts, still chasing fame. What? Let them hear it. The name 12, the first name gauge of the blast. Hear me out, it's all about the game. The YouTube street same, got no shame. From cat kickers to those with the sauce, we see them daily laughing and joking about those that take a stand about their minds. It's just a daily dose of insanity. Whatever it do, from missing kids to people being butchered in the night, many lost in these chats without a fight. 12 gauge, listen up fast. The beat of the heart will melt your cast. It's the crown of the champ, the image of the might. Get your ass ready, because here comes the fight. There are beggars, grifters, betties too. Just a lot of confusion, whatever it do. From missing kids to people being butchered in the night, many lost in these chats without a fight. Listen to the words that run from a mic. There will be knowledge and facts to light. You don't get it, you think I'm too brash. Listen to the ones that you just throw away your cash. 12, 12, 12. Can you remember the name? It's about a sinister shadow in the dark to ruin your sleep with the mares of the night that give you chills. Come to the channel, you can get your fears brought to live without the censors. Making a fight, your brain beat down from the grifters on these streets. Give the channel a try and dance to the groove of a different drum. Woo! There are beggars, grifters, betties too. Just a lot of confusion, whatever it do. From missing kids to people being butchered in the night, many lost in these chats without a fight. Explosion and success is what I'm about. It's the honesty and humility without the cloud. I chose to be who I am a long time ago. Addiction had me drowning. Hell on with the show. 12, 12.